Hello and a huge welcome to our show this week. As always, we have a really great show coming up for you. We are going to be talking about how you can stay sane in this crazy world we're living in. Because I don't know about you, with lockdown on, lockdown off, this rule, that rule, go to work, don't go to work. It can get a little bit difficult, can't it? So we thought we would talk to you about some of the ways that we found to stay out of that craziness and stay in our grounding and stay in our sane place. So on that note, we are also, just before we dive in, we would like to tell you a few things we are up to. And one of the things that we are up to is we are going to be doing a 3-part webinar series talking all about how to live from love. Because exactly, we're going to be touching on a little bit about it in this week's show. So if you love the show, you're going to really love the webinars because we're going to dive a little bit deeper. But what we have seen is there is a place inside every one of us that is just the source of everything, the source of life, the source of who we are. And when we connect to that, even in the middle of a crazy pandemic, things go well. So we're going to be doing a 3-part webinar series. It is going to be a paid thing, but there will be information about it and how you join it and what you have to do and what you'll get from it. There'll be a lot of information about that on our website. So I won't rattle all about that now. Apart from to tell you it will be amazing and you should join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's going to be great. So we'll be starting that next week, and then every week for 3 weeks we'll be getting together on a call to just talk about living from love during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we'd love to have you with us for that. I also wanted to just mention before we dive into the show that we decided this year, with all that's gone on, that with the season of goodwill nearly upon us,
Christmas,
counting down the days, we thought it'd be really fun to do a Dare to Be You advent calendar. So we are putting together an advent calendar that you can buy from us and join in for the whole of December in the season of goodwill, Dare to Be You style. So we're just building that at the moment, but you can buy it. It will be available. You can buy it immediately, and then you'll get access to that on the last day of November, ready to start counting down your December. So if you want to know more about
it
that,
won't be chocolate though.
No, sadly not. No. If you need a chocolate one, you'll have to pop to the shops. We can't find a way to do an online digital chocolate advent calendar.
No, we need to be able to feed chocolate through the internet, but at the moment we can't.
It will be fun. It will be all about the kindness and goodness and joy and all those kind of wonderful things that we love to talk about.
Absolutely, light-hearted, fun.
Yeah, that's us. That's how we
get us in the Christmas spirit. No matter what's going on, let's get in. Let's have some Christmas
wear
spirit.
Some tinsels on one or two of the little videos.
We might.
So go and have a look on the website daretobeyou.co.uk to find out about getting your advent calendar.
Yes.
Or if you're on our mailing list, there'll be information coming about that over the next couple of weeks as well, so keep your eyes peeled.
And I will make sure the links to these things, to the webinar series and to the advent calendar and to our mailing list, because we have lots of other stuff as well. I'll make sure all the links are below this video so that you can go and find out more about them.
Yes.
So without further ado, let's jump into today's show. So our topic for this week is how to remain sane when we're living in a crazy world. And I don't know about you, but I don't think there are many people on this planet who could say that 2020 went exactly as they thought it was going to go. There are many things that don't go the way that we expect them to go, the way that we thought they were going to go. But I think 2020 has surpassed
all previous possible.
I think it's blown it all out of the park, hasn't it, for not being the year that we expected it to be. And I think we have all lived through things we never thought we would live through. And for me, one of the things I can see, there was all sorts of, there's been terrorist threats. There was, when I was a child, World War II was still spoken about a lot. So somewhere inside me, I had this idea that there was a possibility that I might live through a war at some time. I don't think it ever occurred to me that what has gone on would happen, that in peacetime my freedom would be taken away in quite the way that it was, and my ability to see my children, to pick up my grandson, to to just go out of the house when I want to go out of the house, I never really saw it coming in the way that it did. And for children not to go to school, that first lockdown, when we first went into that, and the roads were quiet and no one was going to school, it was like my son, one of the things that he loved to watch was zombie apocalypse films, and they always look like, oh, that will never happen. And some of the scenes, some of the things that we saw in those early weeks, I was like, wow, this feels like that has happened. So yeah, I feel like this year most of us in some way or another have had our lives turned upside down a little bit, and then it's been trying to find our feet again, trying to find our ground, trying to find something solid to stand on. And I know different people have been affected in very different ways for different reasons, for work reasons, for personal reasons, for whether you're stuck at home, all sorts of different reasons we've been affected in many, many different ways. But what I have been eternally grateful for during all of this is my understanding of how life works. That life works from the inside out. So I thought it might be helpful for today, even if you have already heard this, even if you already know this, to maybe just go back to some basics of when we say, I'm eternally grateful for knowing how life works. What does that mean? How does life work then? So I remember when I first came across this understanding, my life was a mess for very, very different reasons than what's happened in this year. But I was upside down all over the place, and I couldn't make sense. I couldn't find a way forward. I didn't know what to do. And I was blown away when somebody pointed out to me that human beings feel what we think. Everything that is going on, this life that we live, what we see out in the world, how everything we experience comes to us via this amazing gift that we have as human beings to think. And if we didn't have the gift of thought, we could not be having the experience we're having. No matter what it looked like was going on, no matter how, a pandemic, being told you can't go to work, being told you won't have your wages, the roads being quiet, children not going to school, anything that you went through, have been through, are going through right in this moment, none of that, you could not be aware of it if you didn't have this gift of thought. You couldn't know it. And thought, the way that the gift works through us is it has a personal element to us. So anything that you experience from the outside, if your children haven't been to school, or if you've been, you haven't been able to work throughout the pandemic, or anything that you have either really enjoyed or you have struggled with, your experience of that has got something personal in it, that because it is coming through you, because that experience is coming through you. And if it didn't have that personal thing, your experience of the exact same thing would be different. Now that blew my mind. That opened something up in me to see that any experience that I am having, there is potential and possibility always to have a different experience of that exact same thing. Which, when you are struggling or something is difficult, or you're having a really bad day, to know that the potential for there to be something else available, even without the circumstances being any different at all, that, to me, that's possibility soup.
Swim in possibilities.
Yeah, if you want to jump in and join in with
the thing that was occurring to me around kind of what you're sharing there, about just seeing that anything that we're experiencing has to have a flavour of us on it. It can't be entirely I can never remember it. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. What's that word where it's not touched by anything? Yeah, it can't be entirely neutral because of the way that we work. And so I was going to kind of, the way that I phrased the topic this week, how to stay sane in a crazy world, I wanted to pick up those two words, sane and crazy, and look at kind of what that means. Because I think as we look at what the question even means, it starts to unravel something and kind of come back to what Deb's sharing about how we really work. And there's a really, I think, a fairly famous quote about sanity, or I think it's actually insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. And so I guess if you flip that on its head, the definition of sanity is knowing to do something different in order to get a different result. And I think there's something in that really strikes something for me around this topic, that when we're trying to stay sane, if you like, if we've already been doing something to keep ourselves in a way that feels sane for us and it's not working, but we keep doing it expecting a different result, there's something in there to look at, like it's not making sense anymore to do whatever it is that you've repeatedly done. And I know Deb and I have had experiences of that, you know.
Oh, yes.
We've both been in kind of situations and relationships and such where we're doing the same thing again and again and again and going, well, why isn't this different this time? Why hasn't it changed now? And just seeing that sanity is understanding that when something isn't feeling different, it's because we need to come back within and see and do and know something different. And then the second part of that
possibility soup.
Yes, there we are. Back to possibility soup. We do like possibility soup, very flavoursome. And then the second part of that, the kind of crazy world part, for me, it's like, how would you define crazy? What does crazy look like to you? And in this context, we're obviously kind of saying it in an almost not a good way. Like, I know there's lots of things, like I would say my little niece is crazy, but I mean that in a really great way.
Yeah, my grandson's crazy.
And, you know, let's be fair, we are too. But in this context, we mean essentially a world that we're not so mad about, we're not so happy with, a crazy world, something we're not so comfortable with. And it's seeing that exact thing that Deb was talking about there, that the only reason that world is crazy is because we're putting our fingerprint on it. We're seeing it through our eyes of it being crazy. And something is really only crazy when we don't really put that label on it, when what we mean is, I don't like this, or it's not what I want. Yeah. And so it's just beginning to see that when we look at what sanity means, trying something different to have a different result, the crazy part has the potential to change, because we're going to look out at the world with new eyes, with the same idea in our mind of something different being possible. And so that crazy that, you know, we perhaps don't like so much has the potential to shift into something we do like, something new, something fresh. And I've really seen, we've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks, Deb and I, about kind of what we focus on, what we're thinking about, what we're putting our attention on is what we are getting. And I really see that in this kind of topic around, like, you know, if I'm looking out at a crazy world and I keep focusing on how do I change the crazy, how do I not feel crazy about it, all I'm getting is more crazy, because we're just focusing on that we say we don't want. And so for me, it's like actually almost turning it on its head and going, where's the sanity in me first and foremost? Because the more sanity I am seeing, the more that's going to reflect out into the world.
And what was coming to me when you were saying that was a really lovely quote by Dr. Wayne Dyer that I've known this quote for quite some time, and just recently it's taken on a whole new depth. I've seen it again, and it is, when we change the way we look at something, what we look at changes. And that to me sums up this that we're pointing to as well. It looks that wherever we are, whatever is going on, whatever our circumstances are, we are never stuck with only one view of something. It can seem that way, and trust me, you know, if you're going, well, you're not in my circumstances, you're not where I have been in places where it looks to me like there's only one view. I'm not saying that, but what I know from from understanding a little bit about how we work from the inside out, from understanding what I was saying before, that we live in the feeling of our thinking, understanding the nature of thought. Thought by its very nature, it flows. It's like a river. We continually have more thinking. So we cannot ever be stuck, because we cannot ever be stable. We can never stop the flow of thought. We can't. It's not possible. If we stop the flow of thought, we would be dead. So that can't be possible. So we can never be in a place where we are stuck with it. It is only this, because we do not directly experience a circumstance. We experience thought. So if I'm having an experience of what I'm thinking, no matter what is going on, my thinking is still flowing. Now, as I said, I totally get it if you're in a place saying, well, you haven't been in my head then, because my I have one thought and that's it, and there's nothing else available. Trust me, I've been there. And I know, I'm pretty sure I can say that you have felt that. But what I know, because of what I have learned about how we work as human beings, when my head is saying that, I know that is a trick of my mind. My mind, whilst giving me other thinking, is saying, you've only got one thought here. You've only got one thought. That other one isn't, that other one isn't available. That is a different thought. I'm having different thinking all the time. And because we are never stuck with one thought, there is always the possibility, that quote by Dr. Wayne Dyer, when we change what we look at changes. When we recognize that there is another thought available, and we look for a different thought in our mind, there will be something different there. And then the circumstances that we were in will look different, because they're not neutral. What's going on here, we cannot see it without some sort of filter on it. And as our filter changes, if you think of photographs, if you change the filter, even if it's only a subtle change, there is a change there. And to me, that is the biggest hope for humanity, to be aware of that, to recognize it, to see it, to look for that.
Yeah, and I think that I was having a conversation about that this morning with someone around kind of something they've been involved with a few years ago in their life, where essentially it was kind of a community of people that were trying to help each other, trying to support each other to have a new kind of life. But where they were coming from, their kind of starting point was, you have pain that you have blocked, and you need to unblock that and kind of bring that out. And immediately, if someone kind of says that to you, you can find pain. You can find that pain within you, because we will always find what we are looking for. If we are looking out for a crazy world, we'll find it. And I kind of was having this conversation with this lady, and she'd seen something quite different around that since. But we were having a conversation about living from love, not fear. And I kind of said, it's a shame in a way that they didn't say to you, there's like this love inside you that's been blocked. Let's release that into the world. Because I guarantee if you were looking for that, you'd have found it too. Because that's how this works. What we look for, what we look out for, what we're aware of, what we want to see more of, is what we get. Like, we always use the example, I know, of like when you're looking to buy a new car, once you know what car you think you want, immediately, isn't that car on the road 100 times more often than ever before? Like, never before did I see that car, and now all of a sudden they're everywhere. Every other person's got that car. Because when we are prepared to look out for something in our lives, we find it. And so kind of when we are looking out through the eyes of the world is crazy, we're going to see that. We're going to see a lot of crazy. We're going to find it. We're going to find the evidence for it. Our mind, our brain has this kind of, it's like, what's the dog? I can't think what the dog's called, that kind of goes sniffing along to try and it's like a tracker dog. I can't think what they're called. I'm not great at dogs.
Some kind of hound.
Yeah, those kind. That's our brain is like that. It's like one of those kinds of hounds that you give it a trail, you give it a scent of something, and it will go everywhere to find it. And it's like, I like to play the game of, how can I find sanity Where is sanity within me? Peace, freedom, joy. Where is that? Look out for that. Look out into the world looking for that. Look within looking for that. And I will find it, and I do find it regularly.
Me too. Me too. And when you were talking about the pain being blocked inside us and love, what I really see around this conversation, what has made sense to me, is there is only one energy here. Everything that we talk about and everything that we point to says that there is one thing here that has created, it's God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the intelligence, the creative essence. There's just one thing at play here, and part of its play has been to create human beings who believe that they are separate, who believe that they're not one. And it's clever, it's amazing, it's brilliant. I love having the human experience. And we've said I don't know how many times, it's not a mistake that we are human. It's great that we get, as this intelligence of the universe, we get to play at being human. It's brilliant. But what that points to, when we look at that, when we come back to oneness, to me, to create something as amazing as human beings, that intelligent has got to be pretty intelligent. If you look around you, just wherever you are now, if you just stop for a second and look, in this moment, we're looking at a computer screen. We've got a computer phone, as somebody that I met recently calls these things. We have a computer phone. We've got books and pens and glasses that allow me to be able to see just, in my reach. There's amazing things here. Human beings are creative. We are brilliant. And even if you look at this pandemic and what's gone on, the things, what is it that something diverse, what is the mother of invention? What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. The amount of things, the way human beings have stepped up to find ways around the things we couldn't do, and it's blown my mind. We are super, super, super cool. So it is. We are so lucky to have this experience. We are so lucky. But there is just one thing here, and that is abundance, generosity, love. And when we block the flow of that, the feeling that we get when we block that flow is pain, is discomfort, is dis-ease. We get out of our healthy place when we block that flow. And I see that in me when I don't feel great, if I'm feeling a bit down or feeling a bit off, or I have some thinking and I'm like, the kinds of feelings I get upset feelings, I get jealous feelings, all the feelings that we do. And when I feel like that I know that is some of that love energy, that amazing essence of being human is being blocked in me somewhere. And if I've got a job, my only job is to listen to the amazing ideas and desires and things that I have that come to me from nowhere, it appears, that I can create in the world, and just allow that flow to come through me. And to me, then, the world does turn crazy, but in the best of ways.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it?
I'm totally sane in a crazy, beautiful, crazy world. Crazy good.
Yeah, I think the last thing for me that I really want to say, and that was the other thing that occurred to me to share about kind of sanity and being sane. I think we can sometimes, there's words that we can have a lot kind of placed on what they mean and where we should or shouldn't use them. And I think for me, being sane is really just another way of saying having a quiet mind, a still mind. And I think for me, that's just been a priceless thing that has come in my life since being around this conversation and getting to know how my experience works, is that my mind has just gotten quieter in a really good way. And for me, I would describe that as sanity.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I was talking to my son a few days ago, and one of the things we were talking about was how fast our thinking feels when it is anxious or upset or any of those things we don't like. And I actually, I know I've shared this before, but a good few years ago, I had a car accident, and I turned my car upside down, and my mind just went really, really still. I was having thinking, but it felt incredibly, it must have been some of the fastest thinking I've ever had, I think, but the feeling was very slow and very clear. So it is interesting, isn't it, how when our mind is clear, it can still move incredibly fast. And yet when I'm having anxious thinking, you know, when you watch those adverts on telly or hear them on the radio or something, and they're advertising something brilliant, and then they go, and the terms and conditions.
Terms and conditions. I have no idea what your terms and conditions are.
And to me, that feels like my anxious mind.
Yeah.
And yet when my mind is clear, the words can come in a millisecond, but they don't go, they go, your terms and conditions are, and I'm very clear what they are.
Yeah.
But it feels like they come just as quickly, but they're not falling over themselves. So right, so I hope there was some gems in there for you. I hope you heard something around that. And as always, if this show brings, gets you having questions or anything like that, feel free to comment anywhere, to get in touch with us. We always love to hear from you, and we will always answer any questions personally that you ask. And next week, our topic is going to be more thinking won't help.
And we're going to have a look at the question, how can I be of service? So we would love to see you again next week. We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. And like we mentioned at the beginning, there's a couple of ways coming up over the next few weeks that you can be a bit more involved in this conversation. You can join us on the Living from Love webinar series, and you can treat yourself to a very nice Dare to Be You advent calendar to get your December off to a great start.
Cool. So I hope to catch up with you somewhere very, very soon. Take care. Have a great rest of the week.
Take care.
Bye.